Your cardinal has been vanishing every summer, and you probably blamed yourself. The feeder stayed full. Nothing changed. But sometime in late June, he just stopped showing up. Most people assume they did something wrong, or something got him. Neither is true, because nobody ever told them what is actually happening to him at this exact time every year. Subscribe to Bird Sense right now. This is exactly the kind of thing we uncover every week, and where your cardinal actually goes every summer, and why he has no choice. That is what changes everything. To understand what he is actually doing, you have to understand molt, the process of replacing feathers, nearly all of them, once a year. For a northern cardinal, this happens in late summer, and it is not a gradual background process. It is physically demanding, metabolically expensive, and for a bird whose plumage drives territory defense and mate signaling, it is a period of genuine vulnerability. His entire behavioral system is designed to minimize. During molt, your cardinal is not the bird you know. He is slower, duller, more exposed, and spending a disproportionate share of his energy growing back the feathers that keep him alive and competitive. Every calorie that would normally go toward territory defense is being redirected toward feather production, which is expensive in ways that show up in his behavior before they show up in his appearance. Here is where it gets strange. A molting cardinal does not look like a cardinal. The vivid red that makes him instantly recognizable. The plumage that defines his territory claims, his pair bond, his competitive status in every interaction with every other male in the area, fades, patches, and in some cases disappears almost entirely. Cardinals in active molt have been mistaken for entirely different species by experienced birders who did not expect to see a semi-bald, dull-colored bird sitting where a cardinal usually sits. The crest goes patchy, the face may go dark and bare, the body color loses its intensity and can shift from vivid red toward a muted brownish tone that looks nothing like the bird you know. For a bird whose entire social and reproductive identity is built around that red, the molt period is the one time each year when he is, by every visual signal that matters to other birds, nobody. Which means the cardinal at your feeder this morning, if you see him at all, is operating under a completely different set of pressures than the bird you watched all spring. During breeding season, visibility was the point, singing from exposed perches, chasing rivals across open yards from Connecticut to Texas, displaying at every opportunity. All of that was by design. Now visibility is the problem. A bird in partial molt is slower to take off, less aerodynamically efficient, and more visually conspicuous in the wrong way. Not the conspicuousness of a healthy territorial male, but the conspicuousness of something that looks like it might be worth investigating by a hawk passing over a backyard in Georgia or a falcon crossing a neighborhood in Colorado. The correct response to that exposure is exactly what you have been seeing: withdrawal, concealment, and a dramatic reduction in the behaviors that would normally keep him at the center of your yard. Most people across the country spend years watching cardinals and never connect the summer disappearance to the molt cycle because nobody frames it that way. They just notice the feeder gets quieter in July, that the bright red bird they have been watching since January seems to have left, and then in September he is back, vivid, loud, territorial, and they assume he went somewhere and came back. He did not go anywhere. He was in your yard the entire time, or close to it. He was just in the shrubs, the dense ones, the ones with overlapping cover, the ones a hawk would have to commit to entering, rather than plucking from an open branch. He was doing exactly what a bird in his condition should do, staying alive until the molt was finished, and he could be the bird he is the rest of the year. But researchers found something they did not expect when they mapped cardinal home ranges through the molt period using radio. telemetry in residential areas across the Southeast and Midwest. The birds did not expand their range during molt. They contracted it. They pulled back to a smaller core area, typically centered on dense vegetation within their established territory, and reduced their movement dramatically. A bird that might cover several hundred meters of territory on an active spring day covered a fraction of that during peak molt weeks. The feeder was still in his territory. He just was not advertising the fact that he was using it. The arrival times shifted to the margins of the day. The visits got shorter and quieter, and the perch time he would normally spend singing or displaying the behavior that makes him visible and known disappeared almost entirely from the hours you would normally be watching, which means if you have a cardinal who has been coming to your feeder reliably since February and he went quiet in late June, he did not leave. He reduced. He compressed his visible presence into the smallest footprint that still let him maintain his territory and stay fed. And he waited. There is no distress signal in that behavior, no indication that something is wrong with your yard or your feeder or the relationship you have built with him. Across months of ordinary mornings, he is running a survival protocol that is as old as the species. He just cannot tell you that, and the silence reads as absence when it is actually something closer to strategy. He has run this same protocol every summer of his life, in whatever yard happened to be his territory at the time, and he will run it again next year, at almost exactly the same point in the calendar. Here is where it gets even stranger. The molt timing is not random, and it is not triggered by temperature or weather in the way most people assume. It is photoperiod driven, controlled by day length, the same mechanism that governs breeding, migration timing, and hormonal cycles in birds across the continent. As day length shortens past a specific threshold in midsummer, the biological signal goes out, and the molt begins on a schedule so reliable that researchers can predict its onset in a given population to within a week or two, year after year, across decades of data. Your cardinal is not disappearing because something in the yard changed. He is disappearing because it is the right number of hours of daylight, and every system in his body knows it. Just as surely as he knew when to start singing in February and when to start defending territory in March. The calendar did not change. The bird did not change. The daylight hit a threshold, and the protocol began, as it always does, on schedule. Which means the next time July comes around, and the feeder goes quiet, and the branch where your cardinal usually sits stays empty for days at a stretch, you are not watching abandonment. You are watching one of the most reliable biological cycles in North American ornithology playing out in your own backyard, invisible to you, because it was designed to be invisible to everything. The bird that will come back in September, bright, loud, fully plumed, acting like he owns the yard because he does, is the same bird who has been 30 feet away in your shrubs for the past 6 weeks, waiting for this exact moment. He was there the whole time. He just needed you to not know it. And next summer, when the feeder goes quiet again, at the same point in the calendar, you will be one of the few people in your neighborhood who understands exactly what that silence means. Not loss, not failure, not something wrong with your yard. Just a bird doing what birds have always done in the weeks of the year when doing it quietly is the only thing that matters.